There is a border in South Asia where a single attack, an artillery exchange, or a mistake could trigger a crisis between two nuclear-armed countries. That border separates India and Pakistan. At the center is Kashmir, a mountainous region claimed by both sides. For almost 80 years, Kashmir has seen wars, terrorism, standoffs, and diplomatic breakdowns. To understand why this border is so dangerous, go back to the birth of India and Pakistan. In the summer of 1947, as the British Empire retreated from the subcontinent, new borders appeared almost overnight. The Radcliffe Commission, led by a British lawyer who had never set foot in India before, drew lines through Punjab and Bengal with a few strokes of a pen. But Jammu and Kashmir, a sprawling kingdom perched at the roof of South Asia, was left off the map. Its fate was not decided by communal numbers or colonial officials, but by the will of a single man, Maharaja Hari Singh. While millions scrambled across the burning plains, Hindus fleeing west, Muslims east, Kashmir's ruler tried to hold his state apart. He signed standstill agreements with both India and Pakistan, hoping to keep autonomy while chaos raged around him. But the border was already bleeding. In the Jammu region, entire villages emptied as violence swept through. Government records and survivor accounts estimate that nearly 15 million people were uprooted across the subcontinent, with tens of thousands from Kashmir alone forced to abandon their homes. By October, the illusion of neutrality collapsed. Tribal fighters, armed and organized from Pakistan's northwest, crossed into Kashmir. As they advanced on Srinagar, the Maharaja's options vanished. On October 26, 1947, he signed the Instrument of Accession, handing control of defense, foreign affairs, and communications to India. The original parchment, still preserved in the archives, bears his signature and the date, a single act that would ignite decades of conflict. India's leaders insisted the accession was provisional, pending a plebiscite. But as Indian troops flew into Srinagar and war broke out along the mountain passes, the promise of self-determination slipped away. The United Nations intervened in April 1948, passing Resolution 47, a call for ceasefire, withdrawal of forces, and a free and impartial vote to decide Kashmir's future. That plebiscite never came. Instead, the ceasefire froze armies in place, dividing Kashmir along a jagged line that still scars the mountains. The legal status of Kashmir remains unresolved, suspended between maps, treaties, and the ghosts of promises never kept. Every artillery exchange, every diplomatic standoff, traces back to the uncertainty written into the border at its birth. The question of who owns Kashmir was never answered, only deferred, leaving a fault line that has grown more dangerous with every passing decade. Barbed wire and concrete outposts now cut through the valleys and ridges where the ceasefire line once lay. But this was never a border meant to last. It hardened in blood and artillery fire. In 1965, armored columns and infantry crossed the line as India and Pakistan fought their second war over Kashmir. The conflict raged for 17 days, with tanks clashing in the plains and artillery duels echoing through the mountains. The front shifted, but neither side broke through. When the guns fell silent, the armies remained, entrenched, reinforced, and wary. Only 6 years later, the subcontinent was at war again. In 1971, as East Pakistan fought for independence, the Western Front flared. Indian and Pakistani troops exchanged fire along the entire frontier. New Delhi's forces advanced, capturing territory in both the east and west. The war ended with the creation of Bangladesh, but in Kashmir, the line was redrawn and renamed. The Simla Agreement of July 1972 converted the old ceasefire line into the Line of Control, a name that promised stability but delivered none. The LOC was never recognized as an international boundary. It was a military reality, not a diplomatic solution. Over decades, the LOC became a fortress. Satellite images and defense reports show a 740-kilometer fence bristling with razor wire, sensors, and floodlights. Reinforced bunkers dot the high ground, artillery batteries stand ready, and searchlights sweep the night. Indian and Pakistani troops, about 30,000 on each side, face each other across a no-man's land, sometimes just a few meters wide. The terrain is unforgiving. The air tense with the constant threat of sniper fire and sudden barrages. The Kargil conflict in 1999 drove the point home. Pakistani-backed fighters seized mountain peaks on the Indian side of the LOC, sparking weeks of high-altitude combat. Indian artillery and airstrikes pounded the heights until the lines were restored, but the scars remained. Ever since, both militaries have poured resources into fortifications, surveillance, and quick reaction forces. The LOC is now less a dividing line than a pressure point, one where the slightest spark can trigger a chain reaction. Here, the armies are more than soldiers. They are institutions, locked in a permanent standoff, shaping national policy and public perception alike. The boundary has become a living front, its volatility measured in barrages and ceasefire violations, its permanence enforced by concrete and steel. A lone gunman in Mumbai, a car bomb on a mountain road, artillery at dawn. Each has pushed India and Pakistan toward the edge. The border is a pressure point where Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, shielded by rugged hills and local contacts, strike Indian cities and bases. In 2008, forensic teams traced the Mumbai attacks to Pakistani explosives, GPS logs from Karachi, and phone calls routed through handlers in Muzaffarabad. The 2016 Uri attack killed 19 Indian soldiers, and chemical analysis again pointed to cross-border supply lines. Each incident triggered swift retaliation, airstrikes, troop mobilizations, and diplomatic threats. In 2019, after a Jaish-e-Mohammed suicide bomber killed 40 paramilitary police in Pulwama, Indian jets struck Balakot. The next day, Pakistani fighters crossed the border, ending with an Indian pilot in Pakistani custody. The world watched as two nuclear powers hovered on the brink. The crisis deepened in August 2019, when India revoked Article 370, erasing Jammu and Kashmir's special status, and imposing direct rule from New Delhi. Streets filled with soldiers, communications went dark, and political leaders disappeared into detention. Pakistan called it annexation, warning of renewed militancy and diplomatic deadlock. In 2025, a hybrid militant group attacked foreign tourists in Pahalgam. Ballistics matched bullet fragments to rifles smuggled through tunnels in Poonch, the digital trail leading to ghost SIM cards, and a call center in Pakistan. Indian forces launched Operation Sindoor, striking militant camps across the line of control and deeper into Pakistani territory. Artillery thundered, drones circled, and both sides accused each other of civilian casualties. Islamabad responded with barrages and announced suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty, threatening water supplies for millions downstream, a lifeline that had survived decades of conflict. Chinese engineers stationed north of the line of control to protect the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor watched as shells landed near their supply routes. Now, the border is a fault line where nuclear doctrine, water security, and great power rivalry collide. Here, every attack and political move accelerates the crisis, shrinking the gap between local violence and global emergency. In May 1998, the desert at Pokhran shook as India tested 5 nuclear devices between the 11th and the 13th, ending decades of restraint. 17 days later, Pakistan detonated 6 bombs at Chagai, its mountains flashing white under the blasts. Two rivals, both nuclear-armed, now faced each other across the line of control. The world saw mushroom clouds, but the real threat was a silent, stepwise path from border skirmish to disaster. India soon announced a no-first-use policy, pledging its nuclear weapons would remain silent unless attacked first. This doctrine, anchored by a triad of missiles, bombers, and submarines, promised massive retaliation for any nuclear strike, tactical or strategic. Indian leaders spoke of stability, but across the border, Pakistan's generals saw vulnerability. Outnumbered by India's conventional forces, Islamabad refused to adopt the same restraint. Their doctrine allowed for first use if national survival seemed threatened, especially if Indian armor advanced into Kashmir. The gap widened with Pakistan's Nasir missile, introduced as a battlefield weapon with a range under 60 kilometers. Nasir lowered the nuclear threshold, signaling that even a limited incursion could trigger nuclear response. Analysts described an escalation ladder, a sequence where each rung, artillery fire, airstrikes, threatened supply lines, raises the risk. At every step, leaders must choose whether to escalate or pull back. The presence of tactical nuclear weapons means that even a drone strike or commando raid could spiral beyond control before diplomacy intervenes. History has tested this ladder. In 1999, during Kargil, both sides moved nuclear-capable missiles forward. In 2001 and 2002, after the parliament attack, hundreds of thousands of troops mobilized while nuclear forces quietly went on alert. In 2019, during the Balakot-Pulwama standoff, both governments referenced their nuclear doctrines, searching for signals of escalation. For Kashmiri civilians, the danger is constant. The border is more than a line, it is a ladder, each rung a risk, each decision a possible step toward catastrophe. Even now, a single gunshot in Kashmir can send shockwaves across global capitals. With two nuclear arsenals poised along a fault line of history and water, the world's margin for error is razor thin. This isn't just a border, it's the front line of tomorrow's crisis. Stay vigilant.